All right, this is the third time that I'm trying this, and hopefully this time is a charm. The first time I had to delete that video. I have a DJI microphone, wireless microphone system, and it's actually a beautiful microphone, works very well. But I plugged it into my laptop, and when I tried to do the audio because I wanted to do like a reaction video to the history of Rolex, that didn't work out so well. And then something happened with my gimbal, and then my gimbal shut down, and it was like truly crash and burn. So that's a good thing, man. Like I said, I'm trying this out. I know I'm going to make a lot of mistakes and learn about this process, but I'm trying to figure out if StreamYard is a platform that I want to use. So far, based on what I see so far, I'm kind of I don't know, man. I'm kind of on the fence, but we'll see where it goes. So today's topic is I'm talking about Rolex. One of the things I want to do with my channel is I want to have segments where I talk about different things. Not just about the economy, even though all this stuff kind of like ties together. But I am a huge watch fan, and so for many years I've been a watch fan, and over time I have purchased a number of watches. Doing a wrist check today, you can see I'm wearing the Apple Watch, and so to me, the Apple Watch is like one of the best watches that you can buy in terms of utility. This watch does a lot, works very well. I can interact with my car and do things with my car through the watch. It helps me with my workouts and tracks my vitals. And when I exercise, gives me a lot of information to look at. As far as a daily wearer, it's a great daily wearer. And this particular one has a sapphire crystal. So, it is a quality piece. It's titanium, so it's very light. One of the things that I do like is that I can wear like a ton of straps with it. And so, to me, for a daily watch, if you really want something that you can get a ton of utility out of, the Apple Watch is definitely one of the go-to items to get, and it's even better if you have an iPhone. So I'm not necessarily plugging Apple, but I'm just saying based off of my personal experience using the Apple Watch, I really do like the product, and so I tend to wear this every day. And then on special occasions, I wear other watches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of like talk about the truth about Rolex and what's going on in the luxury watch market. There's a lot of channels out there, and I'm a huge fan of Rolex. I'm not here to diss Rolex or say anything bad about Rolex, but I just want to kind of offer a different opinion because there's a lot of different watch channels out there that talk about Rolex, the process of buying a Rolex. You have a lot of dealers. There's authorized dealers. There's resellers. There's flippers. There's all kind of stuff out there that's going on about this watch. And as I went through my journey of buying luxury watches, I had a chance to kind of learn about all of this and kind of go through this experience. And boy, was it interesting. So most of the time, a lot of people who buy luxury watches don't really know much about the brand or the history of the brand. They look at it as a public validation piece. And there is some truth to that. People tend to look at things a certain way, and how you present your public image. Um, you know, People look at how you dress and what you wear, man. And even though it's superficial and fake as hell most of the time, people perceive you based on, their public perception of you, even though they don't know you. So, how you dress, what's on your wrist. If you're going to a restaurant, you're going to a hotel, you're going to a business meeting, these little cues and stuff does say something about you. It kind of sucks that it is that way, but it is what it is. And so, it's not to say that you have to wear a luxury timepiece or buy expensive clothes in order for people to realize who you are and the value that you bring to society. But it's just the way that society has been conditioned, right? So looking at the luxury watch market, when the pandemic hit, everybody knows that the price of everything basically went through the roof. And the reason for that was because the supply chains were broken, right? And so because inventory couldn't come to market, people were getting free money from the government, which acted like fuel on the fire. People started chasing assets, man. And so the price of everything went up, and then there were shortages, right? And so that comes into where the opportunists get involved, which are, the watch flippers and the secondary watch market dealers, and then even the Rolex authorized dealers, right? Or authorized retailers, right? Because there's a bunch of different authorized retailers in there. So, of course, now we're at this period, fast forward to today, and the market has crashed, right? And so it's crashed for a number of things, right? And so, looking at Rolex, the reason why I really like this company is because of the history of the brand. Hans Wilsdorf is the creator of Rolex. And, this guy has had a very fascinating life, and looking at, his life and what he went through really got me interested in the brand, because I saw, his progression through life and how he thought about things. And, when you look at people that make great change in society, there's always something that's special about them and their story and their dedication. Hans Wilsdorf, lost his parents, right? And so at a very, very young age, and that's extremely, extremely tragic. And sometimes people don't recover from that. And, not only did the guy lose his parents, but, his family ended up selling his parents' business and putting him into a boarding school. And it was kind of like a smart move, man, because what it shows is that the family really did value education. And if you look at today's society, some people don't value education, some people do, but the people that tend to get ahead in life, they value education, and education comes in many forms. And I don't want to go down a rabbit trail about this, but the whole thing about education is very important, and what you go to school for is very important. And so when he went to the school, when he got his first job, Hans learned about retail arbitrage. And most people don't understand, but retail arbitrage essentially provides very little value to the economy. It's very inflationary. And for people that don't understand it, I'll break it down for you, right? So there's retail arbitrage happens across many markets. And I'm going to use the sneaker market as an example, right? So if you ever try to buy like a hot pair of Jordans, you have to go through the Nike app, or you try to go to this store and that store, get on the list and everything, and you try to get these shoes. Well, there's a huge demand. They know that everybody wants these shoes. So what happens is that people who want to make a quick buck, they go and line up and they try to get as many pairs as possible. So one person will go and chase after 20 to 30 pairs of shoes. It got so bad, people were using sneaker bots and trying to get shoes. And then what they would do is drive up the price, right? Because they have all the inventory. So, the shoe would cost like $160. They sell it for $250. That's retail arbitrage. That's where they're taking a product out of supply, jacking up the price, and reselling it to you at a higher price in order to make a profit. Now, if you look at the secondary watch market, it's retail arbitrage. They're not providing any value to the economy, mostly. I mean, the little value that they provide is the salaries that they pay for the people who work at the stores, maybe for the rent that they pay to the person that, owns the place of business where they're at. And even that's not really adding value to the economy. But, this type of business creates inflation. Business model creates inflation. And, it also doesn't provide value to the economy. So the thing is that he learned about this in his first job, where he was basically working for a business that sold pearls. He was like, man, this guy doesn't make anything, but he's making a ton of money, And so the second job that he got, he went to go work for a watchmaker, and he learned about the business there. But what a lot of people don't know about Hans also had to serve in the war. He's a German. A lot of people don't know that the creator of Rolex was German. And, German and engineering, I don't even have to say that much about engineering. You know what I mean? German engineering is just phenomenal. It's absolutely incredible. So you can understand the mindset, and how this guy was thinking, as he got his education. And, the first part of business he learned about was retail arbitrage. And then he went to work for a watch company, and he started learning about the watch market and how things were made. And he saw an opportunity where he saw a deficiency in the market. Now, I'm going to compare this to Elon Musk, right, and electric cars. So, basically, he saw a deficiency in the market, right? And so he said, everybody's driving around in a gas powered car, but, electric cars are much more efficient, and have, provide less maintenance. There's all these benefits to having an electric car, right? Now we know that it's still, there's people that have range anxiety and all these things that they have about electric cars. But at the end of the day, just to give you an example, I own an electric car. I've had it for 2 years. The only maintenance I did cost $69, and then I recently had to buy rear tires. That was it. Other than that, I haven't had to spend a dime maintaining this vehicle. And I spend about $700 a year putting electricity in it, right? So that's like $70 a month. So it's huge savings there, right? But I digress. Getting back to Rolex, right? So, he eventually went to go work for Kuno Korten, and that's where the big shift happened, because this was like, one of the biggest watchmakers at the time. They were pulling in over 1 million Swiss francs per year. It was a very successful business. And so his mind got to work where he had this idea of, making a change in the market, doing something that hasn't been done. And he was learning all the insides of the business. And so 1905, is when Rolex actually started, but it wasn't called Rolex. It was called Hans Wilsdorf and Davis, right? And so his brother-in-law, basically, I think it was his brother-in-law, Alfred Davis, right, was the one who put the money up to start Wilsdorf and Davis. Now, the interesting thing about Rolex is that being a person that's learning about business and learning about marketing, he needed to have a name for his brand that, was universal globally, right? He needed a name that meant nothing but meant everything. And so that's why I think he came up with the term Rolex, because Rolex doesn't mean anything in the dictionary. It can be translated across all languages as Rolex. It won't change. The name won't change no matter what country, what language you speak to. When you say Rolex, it's Rolex, right? And so that's genius marketing if you think about it, right? It's a universal name that will not change no matter where you go in the world, and everybody understands exactly what it is, right? So, creating that brand, he understood marketing. And then the second part was that he realized one of the things that you need, which is critical to having a successful business, and that's good marketing, right? And so if you look at that today, man, like, there's a lot of people out there that try to get into business and do certain types of businesses and stuff, but the problem that they have is they don't have good marketing, and good marketing costs a lot of money. And here's what separates Rolex from everyone. All right. Rolex spends millions and millions of dollars for brand ambassadors, right, to create the public perception of their watch, right, the image that they want to have for the brand. Now, this has nothing to do with the quality of the product, right? The quality of the product is exceptional. You know what I mean? I can't take nothing from them. They make incredible timepieces that are incredibly reliable, and they age beautifully over time. You know what I mean? And so this is completely different. The marketing side is completely different, right? And so what happens is, it's called the psychological term of appeal to celebrity or appeal to authority. When you see that athlete, or you see that actress, or you see that famous person who's wearing that brand, it automatically clicks in your brain, right? And so it creates a desirability, because everybody wants to be seen, or has a desire to be seen in a certain kind of way, right? And so whether that desire is subconscious or conscious, people pursue these things, right? And this is why Rolex is the biggest luxury watchmaker in the world, because they've mastered the art of doing this, right? And so they are the king of hype. Rolex, the Rolex crown is the king of hype, right? And so that's why they're like one of the most desirable watches in the world. And so I'm fascinated by this, looking at what they've done with this brand is just absolutely fascinating. So the other thing about Rolex that people don't understand is that the company is actually owned by a charity. right? And so, Hans didn't have any kids, right? His parents died, at a very young age. His parents died when he was at a very young age, and they basically had to liquidate all their assets. And that was a very traumatic experience for him, right? So, Rolex was his baby. And when his wife died, he didn't have any children. So Rolex was the only child that he had, and so it was a very genius move for him to put this company into the charity. One, it's the tax advantages. Two, is the financial reporting. It allows the brand to operate with a level of secrecy. Nobody knows anything about what Rolex is doing. And so that brings me back to all these channels where you hear people speculating, oh, they're having trouble doing this, or, oh, there's a problem with that. Oh, Rolex is going to discontinue this. Nobody knows outside of Rolex what Rolex is doing. And nobody's really disclosing any information about what Rolex is doing because of the consequences that come with it. I'm pretty sure if you're working for Rolex, you're signing NDAs, you're not allowed to bring cell phones into work or whatever. I'm pretty sure it's a sterile environment, right? They don't want any type of compromise coming into the company, right? And they operate under a huge veil of secrecy, which works to their advantage, right? And this is like what separates Rolex from all the other brands, and so, like I said, these type of things people just don't know, right? And so now I want to turn to the secondary market, right? And so these secondary watch market dealers, right? They're playing a retail arbitrage game, and they're artificially driving up the price. And not only that, Chinese manufacturing is insane, right? It's catching up to where they're able to create copies of everything, right? And they get better and better at it. The first salvo was in the sneaker industry, where the Chinese have gotten so good at replicating Nike sneakers that it literally destroyed the resale market. If you go look at sneakers right now, it's completely crashed. Part of it is the money dried up, but the other part of it is that the replicas are so good that people are thinking in their head, I don't have a bunch of free money to spend. Why do I need to spend all this money when I can go get this replica that looks identical to the real thing and nobody's going to know, right? So this is kind of happening, to Rolex right now, where they have these super clone watches out there that just look incredible, right? And there's YouTube videos out there about it. And so, the secondary watch market dealers created this problem, right? Because you as a consumer, you want to be able to go in the store and actually buy this product. But what happened is you have the authorized dealer who wants to sell you a ton of stuff that you don't want, and in order for you to get access to purchase what you do want. And then if you don't want to wait in line, you got to go to the shark, right? And then they're going to charge you crazy amount of money over retail just to get the timepiece, right? Now, when you look at Rolex wants to get the product into hands of people that love the brand, right? They want to have a relationship with you. They don't want to just sell you one watch. They want to sell you the ideology of the brand, right? And they want you to go through a journey through the brand. And so they can't do this. They can't have this successful relationship with the customer if you have an authorized dealer chain that won't sell you a watch unless you buy a bracelet, unless you buy some jewelry, unless you buy this watch and buy that watch to get access to this watch. It's crazy, man. And so, when you look at this, it's basically impacting the brand of Rolex, right? And Rolex doesn't want this, right? They want to sell watches, but they also want to have a relationship with the customer to come back and buy more watches, right? They want to increase the size of the family. So when you go into a dealer and you say, oh, you give them your information, oh, they're checking you out and this and that. Yeah, there is some truth to that. They're checking you out to see if you're a flipper, right? Because you're not the type of person that they're looking for, right? And so it says, I'm the only watcher, in my opinion. Thank you for joining, man. I appreciate it, man. This is something that I'm trying new, and I'm trying to go into many different directions. And so hopefully, let me see if I can do this. I can show this comment on this screen. There we go. So I appreciate your support, man. And I don't know how long you've been listening, but I'm telling the story of Rolex and what's going on with the watch market, and the change that Rolex is trying to make. So I appreciate it, man. Thanks. So, with Rolex, they want to have a relationship with the customer, right? And so they realize that these authorized dealers, and it's funny, there's a guy named Juan from Opus Time. He calls them the Flim Flammers, right? The Flim Flammers. So, these people are destroying the image because they want you to buy all this other stuff, right? And then you have these secondary hand dealers. One of them is funny. Juan calls them Happy Feet, but Happy Jewelers out here on the West Coast. They charge crazy prices if you want to buy these watches in the secondary market. So what's recently happened with Bucherer and Tourneau kind of just like fell in Rolex's lap. And it's kind of like a lifeline for them. And it's kind of like the last opportunity for them to turn things around, or they're going to lose complete control. Because if you have an entity out there that's copying your product to the point to where it's indistinguishable, right? These super clones are so good that you can't tell the difference. I mean, it's like, I'll see the video, you can't tell the difference. And so, and it's kind of dangerous because these timepieces are very, very expensive. And so you want to know if you're spending your money, man, that you're getting the real thing, right? And if you don't want to spend your money, hey, more power to you. Me personally, I don't care, man. It's like you do you, how you want it, whatever you want to do. If you want to, if you don't want to spend a crazy amount of money, but you really like the watch and you want to have a super clone, go buy yourself a super clone. Just don't try and sell it to someone else as a real watch. That's the only thing I don't like. Is like, don't try to, flim flam people by buying fake stuff and then try to sell it off as real. But if you want to buy it for your own personal to wear and stuff, I mean, they're beautiful timepieces. The Chinese are doing an incredible job replicating them, so it looks like the real thing, And so for the most part, it's something that personally you can enjoy personally. I mean, for me, I can't do that, right? So for me, because I'm very interested in the brand, I'm interested in the history of the brand, I'm interested in Han's story and what he went through as a child and how he built the brand itself. Unless you're a genuine collector, it's EV to buy Rolex. Let's see. So let me show this. All right. From a life strategy standpoint, something like a watch, unless you're a genuine collector, it's EV to buy a real Rolex. Yeah, I can agree. Yeah. And for me, I love watches and I love collecting watches. I have a number of watches. And so, yeah, and that's why I'm kind of talking about this, because I'm very passionate about it. Right. So, I'm going to get down to the crux of things, man, and kind of explain to you what's really going on. And so, EV means negative expected value. Yeah, I'm not buying a watch as an investment. However, I am buying as an asset because, the value of it will never go to zero, right? So, or it has a historical record of never going to zero. It'll always be something worth something, right? Whether it's $10, $100, or whatever. But yeah, it's not an investment, and I don't see watches as an investment. But with the purchase of Bucherer, something has really changed in the market. And so if you're really interested in Rolex and you want to get a real Rolex and you want to get it at retail, Bucherer is your best bet. And I know that these stores are not everywhere, but Bucherer is the way that they set it up. Bucherer owns Tourneau, right? And this is something that I recently learned. So let's say that you start off and you buy a Rolex Datejust or an Oyster Perpetual, and you want to move up and you want to buy a GMT. Well, if you bought that Oyster Perpetual from Bucherer, you can go to Tourneau and trade it in and get store credit, which will give you a higher value for it. And then you can extract whatever the watch is worth at that time and use that to offset the cost of moving up to a GMT. Same thing if you want to move from a GMT and you want to move to a Sky Dweller, then you can do the same thing, right? And what that does is it keeps you within the brand, right? Because Rolex, let's see, you don't have to declare the value of jewelry when entering a country. So let's see what this says. It says you don't have to declare the value of jewelry when entering a country, but you do have to declare cash gold over $10,000. Yeah, that's an interesting one, man. I wonder though if you came through the airport with a Richard Mille in your suitcase, right, and it wasn't on your wrist, I'm pretty sure they're gonna ask where this came from, right? And so unless you have proof of ownership, I've heard stories. I don't know for a fact that if you're packing really 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 expensive jewelry, that customs can say something if it's not on your person. It's like just in your bag and they see it. You know what I mean? So they're wondering if you purchased it overseas and if you paid taxes on it. So it says you have to wear it. I think, yeah, that's the truth. You have to wear it. So, but yeah, so looking at what Rolex has done with Bucherer and with Tourneau, if you buy from Bucherer and then you trade in through Tourneau, you're building a history with the brand, right? And so Rolex sees you as a person that really likes the brand, that you're not a watch flipper. And so that helps with you getting timepieces. And the thing about it is because Rolex owned Bucherer, you don't have to go in the store and buy a ring. You don't have to go in there and buy a necklace. You don't have to go in there and buy a watch you don't want. You just go in there and you tell them, I want this, right? Now, will there be a wait time for it? Yes. And that brings me to, the kind of like the last part of this live stream is my experience, because I'm a Bucherer customer, right? So, I went into Bucherer and the Bucherer Rolex store, and Steve was, the horological advisor. Steve's a great guy, amazing guy, and so he's at South Coast here on the West Coast. And so I went in there and it was funny, man. It was just like, oh, I want this, I want that, I want this. It's a journey for me. And he's just looking at me like, this guy's crazy. I said, and so he's, and I explained to him, I said, I've been a customer of Bucherer for a long time. I bought, a number of watches over a long period of time. I said, and this is what I'm interested in. And so he's like, okay, let me take your information down, yada, yada. And I was like, looking at YouTube videos, like, man, you're thinking in your head, like, this is some bullshit, man. So, he took my information down and stuff. And then through watching YouTube videos, man, I was just playing the game because I thought I had to play the game. That's kind of like crazy, So I would go in and visit, hey, how are things going? And he's like, yeah, nothing came in yet, and so months went by, and I would go in. But here's the thing, man, like, so I would go in the store and, I started looking at other watches and started trying on other watches and learning more about the brand. And then I was like, let me research like the history of this brand. I'm like, I see these people in the store like buying these watches and stuff. And, I know it's a great timepiece, but I'm like, I wanted to know more about the brand. And once I learned the story about Hans, I was like, holy shit, like, this guy, man, this is an incredible story. And, now I understand, the quality and the prestige in the brand just based on learning about his history and how he traveled through life and the progression of Rolex, right? So I would go in the store, man, and then I was like, I want this watch, and it got to the point where I was kind of frustrated, right? Because I was like, damn, man, I'm like, I keep coming in here, but I'm not getting what I want, and so then I just said, this is what I'm after. And so then I left and I was like, all right, I'm not going to go back anymore. I was like, I'm done, and even my wife was like, don't you get tired of going in there and you don't get shit, so I was like, man, but I have to do it. It's like, I got to go in there. I have to let them know I'm serious. I want this timepiece. This is no joke. I really wanted this stuff. And so finally, it was like, he got the call, I got the text from him and he's like, hey, I got something for you, and so I went there right away. So this is a box, right? And you can see, like, give you a detailed view. So put that to the side. This is the other box. Okay. Now, what's interesting, like with these boxes, right? There's stuff on the back of the box too, right? So, you know, if you're looking at these boxes and stuff, I mean, and you're buying a watch, these are things that you want to look at. And this is the reason why I had to buy this watch, like from Bucherer, right? Because I knew if I bought this from Bucherer, I know I was getting the real deal, right? So, you know, I got, here's my receipt, you know, from Turno, Rolex Bucherer. All right. And so now I'm going to show you what I got. All right. You ready? All right. So I hope you can see that. All right. So, and I'll take the bezel protector off of it. And then I'll take it out. So I wanted the 126713. Let's see if I can get it in there good. Will it focus? There we go. I'll pull it back. So there we go. This is the GRNR. This is the Guinness, right? I wanted precious metal in the watch. I've never had a two-tone watch. This is the back of the watch. Okay, I've never had a two-tone watch. It's 18 karat gold. Yeah, so for some reason it's there we go. So there it's focusing. All right. Now I'm gonna tell you something interesting. Like one thing I learned about this, right? So you can see here's a very good image, right? And if you really look closely, you notice you can't really see anything, right? So I ordered watch shells, and there's, you know, this watch has ceramic stickers on it, and you can't even see them. You know, even if you look on there, so that way I don't get any scratches on it, right? I mean, it's really that good, you can't even see it, you know. So yeah, you know, it's like I wanted this watch and stuff, and that's just to show you I'm a watch enthusiast. It's the first time that they made the GMT two-tone with this Cerachrome bezel, because the Cerachrome bezel is a light gray on the bottom, and it's black on the top, and it has the gold GMT hands. So that's the other thing too. So like the GMT hands are man, this thing doesn't focus well. There we go. The GMT hands are gold, hour markers gold, everything's gold inside the watch. I know with other GMTs, you know, the GMT hand is a different color. Sometimes they use green and stuff, but yeah, so they really did a good job with this watch. And when I tried it on in the store, I was like, man, this thing looks beautiful. It's the perfect size. And because it's something that they haven't done before, you know, I was very interested in. And so I've always wanted a GMT, but, you know, I don't like to go the same way everyone else goes. And so I definitely saw this as going in a different direction. And so I said I wanted this, right? And yeah, and so I didn't buy this as an investment. I bought this because I love the brand. I like the brand. I think the brand is absolutely incredible. The watch feels amazing when you wear it. Just the craftsmanship and the finish. I mean, the way that it sparkles. And so, yeah, I was like, wow, you know, this is an incredible brand. And so I was like, now I can kind of see, you know, the cost behind it because of what they put into it. And, you know, it does look like something that's really special. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something, I don't wear the watch every day. Let's see, you don't have to, let's see. Okay. Oh, thanks, man. It says, let's see. But can it summon the Batmobile? No, but my Apple Watch can. That's crazy because my Apple Watch is connected to my Tesla, so I can like open the doors, roll down the windows, open the trunk, do all kind of stuff, turn on the AC. I can do all kind of things with my Apple Watch, which is pretty crazy. And that's why I wear the Apple Watch more than anything. But that's something for special occasions. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like I got that watch, you know, and the thing is, man, it was like I didn't want to go to the secondary market. I went to a ton of secondary market dealers and talked to them, man, and they rob you, man. It just sucks how they rob you, you know, because I know it's retail arbitrage. I'm like, you know, it's like you feel kind of sleazy. Like, it's like, man, I know you're screwing me. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to charge me all this money for it. And then, you know, the thing is like, if you try to go to them to sell it, which is horrible, but you know, they're going to work you over again, man. And so, yeah, it's just crazy, man. I think with Rolex buying Bucher and Turno, and now they have it set up to where, you know, you can stay within the Rolex family. They really are timepieces that you can enjoy, man, and have a lot of fun with. And so they're very interesting pieces. And some of the newer stuff, like a lot of people don't know, for example, the 1908 is a very significant watch, right? Because, you know, that was kind of like the beginning of Rolex. Rolex was in 1908 was like when they became like the top firm in England. And, you know, and that's like when the name in 1915, it was like, I think that's when they changed the name to Rolex. But the 1908 is very significant because it was kind of like the moment when Rolex really arrived. And so it's a watch that nobody really looks at, but they just recently redid the watch in platinum with the guilloche dial, and it just looks amazing. I mean, it's an amazing looking timepiece, you know. And so definitely I'm thinking, I mean, I think they're going to probably come up with something a little bit different and more special for it, you know. And so that might be one thing I'm looking at. So let's see one of the questions you have here. All right, let's see. One investing question. You're familiar with David Hunter. Seems like he called this market melt up. Would love to see a video on stocks again. 7,000 if possible this year. Okay. All right, so I'll change directions and talk a little bit about what's going on, what I think, my perception of what's going on in the market and what's coming. So when I looked at the TBAC report from the Treasury, the implied interest rates continue to increase all the way through 2033, I think. And so don't quote me if I'm wrong, but you know, the implied interest rate, they see that, yeah, it's going to lower, right? And the thing is that interest rates and high inflation at the same time, stagflation, you know, you got higher prices and high interest and, you know, all kind of crazy stuff going on. It's a huge drag on the economy. And I'll give you an example, right? So, you know, I look at my house. I have an interest rate that's less than 3% fixed for 30 years, right? My mortgage is like less than rent. And so, and I'm sitting on tons and tons and tons and tons of equity, like crazy equity, right? And so I first thought about, well, maybe I should move to a bigger place. It'd be nice, you know, have a little extra room or whatever. And so, you know, to do that with the way rates are now, it's like the places that I look at because I want to stay in my area, the mortgage would be between $15,000 a month and going up as high as $25,000 a month, just because of the increase in price of the home plus the interest rate that sits on top of it. And if you think about a $25,000 mortgage, you need to make $100,000 a month to even qualify for a loan for that, right? And so, you know, the total addressable market for that is tiny, right? Same thing with cars, you know, it's happening everywhere. And I think what's happened is that because most corporations were functioning on a just-in-time supply chain, when that supply chain broke and there were shortages, that really sparked everything. And then companies overreacted. That's what I think what happened, right? So I think that companies oversupplied. So if you look on dealership lots now, full of cars, they can't sell them because of high interest rates, right? Businesses are slowed down. There's just mad inventory everywhere, right? And so they need to work through this inventory, right? And so I think that you have that, plus you have wage inflation, plus you have the government spending crazy money. So I'm gonna try and tie this all together and what I think is gonna happen. Okay, it's a well-known fact that the government has borrowed trillions and trillions of dollars to prop up the economy because of COVID, right? And we know that the government is responsible for the gross mismanagement of this money because they just gave it out, man, to everybody. You need a loan here, you get a loan, you get a loan, you get a loan, you get this, you get that, right? And people just went crazy, man, and chasing after stuff. So now we're in this situation where things are so expensive, but wages haven't caught up. You have a huge government expense now. And then we haven't even talked about these conflicts that are going on. And so, the government is in a situation to where they're just being reckless and borrowing tons of money. And so that's going to continue. And what's happening is there's a bifurcation globally, right? So you have the global south, which is now breaking away from the financial system and is starting to accelerate. You have countries that are letting their bonds mature, and then the U.S. has to refinance, giving them their money at higher interest rates, which is creating a huge interest expense. And you can see that the government is like panicking because they're talking about increasing taxes. They're talking about 44% capital gains tax. They're talking about taxing investments, before you realize the gain. There's all this crazy talk about trying to get money out of the people. And you have the IRS where they spent, millions and millions of dollars or whatever, or billions of dollars to beef up the IRS to go after people. And so when you look at the TBAC report, what you see is that, the taxes that corporations are paying is really not changing all that much. But the taxes that they collect out of the people, that's what's really increasing, right? And so this wage inflation is also going to create product inflation, right? Because as your wages go up, you're going to continue to go and buy things. You have to do it to survive, right? So the money that the government is borrowing, that money is going into the military industrial complex. So they appropriate, the funds. They give the money to Ukraine and to Taiwan, and Israel, and then they give the money right back to us, right? And then what happens is the military industrial complex, these companies, they're publicly traded. They get all these contracts, from them to supply weapons to them. And then the Congress gets their piece, through donations to their political campaigns. And then they offer them board seats or whatever. When they leave from Congress, it's like a revolving door, right? So that creates GDP, but it's not like real value from the economy because the government is borrowing on the back of the taxpayer to create GDP. The second part is you have the advancement in technology, which, came off on a very large start. And right now it's kind of stalling. And I'm going to explain why, right? And so there was a huge rush up in the market with AI because, the executives are looking at it as an opportunity to get rid of people. Basically, they're like, oh, we can automate positions. They're looking at the dollar aspect of it. What can I save, right? And so labor is one of the most expensive components in business. And so because they were forecasting that, with AI, they're going to be able to save all this money by eliminating jobs, that caused the market to speculate that value is going to go up. Earnings per share is going to go up because companies are going to be able to operate more efficiently. But there's a downside impact to that, right? First of all, companies are struggling, right? So they got this technology. And what's happening now is they're trying to figure out how to lay the foundation to implement it. Companies like Microsoft and OpenAI, they were really good at going into corporations and saying, hey, here's a fancy presentation for you. This is what you're going to be able to do by this time. This is what you're going to be able to do by that time. You'll be able to automate these functions. And so, the executives are like, okay, if you automate this, I can get rid of these people. I can cut costs here. I don't need as many people here, right? And so, they sold that to people. Oh, AI came on. So let me see. There we go. Turn it off. So they sold this to them, right? And then once they got the product, they're struggling to implement it. And the reason why is because of the workforce, right? And so the workforce is trained on legacy technology. There's not very many people that are trained on AI technology, like prompt engineering. These are the jobs of the future, right? Prompt engineering, being able to write business requirements, right? understanding how to do data science, right? And how to do data governance, right? So there's all these things that these new skill sets that they need in order to be able to extract value from these products, and they're not there yet, right? And so now you're seeing this stall. Now the market's kind of having these reverberations because there was an implied notion that interest rates were going to drop. I never thought that, because I looked at the TBAC report. They're saying interest rates are here to stay. They're not going to drop them. They can't drop them. The government has to spend a ton of money refinancing debt. Countries are moving away from the dollar because they weaponized it. And so this is keeping there's a lot of inflationary pressures that the Fed's trying to manage, but the government is not helping, right? They're throwing gasoline on the fire. So still at some point though, and adding to this, there's this huge retirement bubble, right? So you have like 12,000 people a day turning 65. People are retiring left and right. I see it, man. It's like people just retiring like crazy, right? So that creates an opportunity for the business, right? Because they say, okay, I got these people leaving, and what I can do is I can replace them with the people that have the skills needed in order to extract value from this product that I paid millions of dollars for. Now, make no mistake, a lot of companies have already bought and paid for this technology, right? Look at Microsoft, right? I think they charge like $30 a month for one license for Copilot, right? So if you got 10,000 employees and you're paying $30 a month for each person to have Copilot, that's a lot of money Microsoft's making. So if you look at Microsoft stock, it's reflected, right? And so everybody's trying to get on this train. But I think what's going to end up happening is at some point, they'll get the resources that they need to be able to extract value out of the technology, right? On the manufacturing side, Tesla is very close with Optimus, right? And so it's insane when you look at, Tesla has the best engineers on the planet. Elon gets bashed all the time, but I really do think the bashing creates one of the best investment opportunities of a lifetime. A lot of people frown on Tesla, but I look at it as a technology company, right? And so what they're doing with Optimus, once Optimus gets to a point to where it can replace basic manufacturing functions, then you'll start seeing that robot get deployed in the field. Tesla will implement it first in their factories, right? And so it'll be working in the battery area. Then soon they'll have it in, on a manufacturing line, or they'll have it moving stuff from one place or another. Mundane jobs they're going to have this robot do. And the beauty about the Tesla robot, which makes it different from any other robot on the planet, is that it's using the same FSD software that's used in the cars. And so when one robot learns something, all the robots can learn, because it's AI to AI, neural net to neural net. And so it's going to learn at this, exponential rate, which is going to accelerate its usage in the economy. And so that's going to have an impact locally, where it's going to create a huge bifurcation in the economy. And so what you're going to see is that people on the low end are going to sink even deeper. But people that are on the high end, that are in the fields required to implement this technology, they're going to be the ones to excel, right? So computer science is kind of going out the door, right? Because all that stuff is going to be, basically automated, right? With artificial intelligence, AI can write code. And then if you look at the mechanical engineer, that's the one that's really going to be needed, right? And so that got validated to me by a professor at a university that I recently went to and had a chance to have a discussion with him. He was telling me what he was seeing, and I've kind of seen it firsthand too. So back to the market, right? So what you're going to see happen is that the market is going to continue to crawl higher and higher and higher. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the money has to go somewhere, right? So all these people that are working their jobs and, they have 401ks and things like that, that's like the dumb money, right? It just comes in the market. It goes into an index fund that gets spread across the S&P 500 or gets spread across the NASDAQ. And so that money just flows in every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. There's just more money coming, more money. There's more people working, right? You see that coming in. Now, when AI starts to mature and it starts to come into effect, they're going to be able to compensate for the drop in people working, right? And that's going to help them maintain profitability. And so there are going to be winners and losers, but the people who are headstrong, like Facebook, Microsoft, a few other companies out there that are headstrong going into this technology, they're going to accelerate. And then you're going to see it go down into the manufacturing sector. Eventually, you might even see it go into the food sector. There'll be automation of transportation that's coming. And so the cost of doing business is going to drop dramatically because the human labor component is going to drop. And so you're saying, well, what happens to the people, man? Well, if you look at what's going on right now, these people that are retiring that don't have retirement funds, their biggest asset is their home. And if you look at home prices are at a record high right now. So these people are going to end up having to sell their homes. Of course, they're going to ask for top dollar, right? And because there's still kind of like this shortage, there's still going to be people that are going to be able to extract that money. The question is will the government have that 44% capital gains rate in place when this starts happening so that they can take half of that money, right? If you're not married, it's $250,000 you get an exemption from. If you are married, it's $500,000. But some people are sitting on a crazy amount of equity. And so when they try to pull that for their retirement, they're going to get hit pretty hard. And so I see there's a comment here. Let's see. What does it say here? Makes a lot of sense. Big corps are using AI to stay afloat. Everybody else gets UBI. Yeah, socialism, man. They're conditioning people in the college system, right? And so, yeah, I definitely think with UBI, they did some balloon tests for that, to see how well it would work. But man, that's like the lowest rung, man, of the economy. And that's not a place people are going to want to be. And, the thing is that society is really changing, man, because, these psyops that they ran on people, everybody wants to be a TikToker or Instagrammer, YouTuber. Look at me, I'm on YouTube, but, I do this just as a hobby. I don't care about the money, and so everybody wants to make $1 million in 5 minutes. If you look at your feed, how I made $1 million in 3 months, how I made $1 million in 2 months, how I made $1 million in like 10 minutes, and you can do it too, and so it's like to get your eyeballs, right, and all the clickbait and stuff. But people are going into these fields, man, and trying to be a millionaire, and it's crazy, man. And so we got another comment here. Thank you, Josh, for checking in. Silver OG. Love it, man. Love it. Thank you. And appreciate you, man. Really appreciate you. Yeah, and so yeah, I think market wise, they're going to do everything they can to protect the market, right? And so with all these people, and then there's all these people they're bringing into the country, right? And it's like, what's going to happen with those people? But I think overall, like, because you got all this automatic money that comes into the market, that over time the market's just going to go higher and higher and higher, and that's where you're going to see inflation too, and with a lot of companies. But there's a lot of companies out there that are hurting too, especially when you look at the Russell, right, the small businesses and stuff. There's going to be some impacts there, like in California they did the $20 an hour thing, which is really crazy, right? And so that was a good play, man, because they know they can't get the money out of the businesses. So what they do is they went for the fast food workers, which were the easiest ones to target. And then they put that pressure on everybody else, right? And so that's wage inflation, right? And so how's the Fed going to be able to drop interest rates? And if they do, then you're going to supercharge the economy because there's a lot of pent up demand for stuff. But the people that are retiring, that are homeowners, they're going to be okay because they got all this equity. And then there's people like me that, I'm in both spots. I mean, I have a ton of equity, but I'm also in the financial markets. I'm into gold and silver, and so, I'll be okay, but I'm pretty sure there'll be some people out there that are struggling. And so I think that you're going to see the middle class kind of like just disappear, right? And then what they're going to do, somebody was talking about it. I think it was Bigger Pockets or one of them. They were talking about how you're going to see people buying smaller homes and condos and stuff because they're not married, right? And so if you look at the cost, to put a roof over your head, you need 2 incomes if you want to be stable. It doesn't matter if you're making $100,000 a year. It just depends on where you live. If you're making $100,000 a year in San Francisco or New York, you're struggling to make ends meet. If you're making $100,000 in Orange County, you're struggling to make ends meet. And then the thing is that what you make is relative to where you are. So, you know, what a position that might pay $100,000 in California might only pay $60,000 in Texas. All right. And so all that stuff is like kind of relative. Right. So yeah, I think the market is going to continue to climb higher. And I think that there's going to be winners and losers. The ones that are taking advantage of technology, that are spending the money to take advantage of technology, I think they're going to do really well. And, you know, the companies that are stagnant and not doing anything, they're going to struggle, man. And yeah, and there's some big changes coming too. Let's see. Here's another comment. I live in Vancouver, Canada, which is more expensive than San Francisco. Real estate went to the moon. Yeah, I saw that, you know, and then what's crazy is like, you know, places like London, man, where they don't even have fixed rate mortgages. And so, you know, when I was in Cancun, you know, I met some people from London and they were saying how their interest rates changed on their flat, man. And it's just, you know, I don't know how they deal with it, man. It's insane. So yeah, it's true, man, that, you know, these type of things are going to have a significant impact where you're going to see a split in an economy where we're going to go basically to the haves and the have-nots. I don't think there's going to be wiggle room in the middle. And I think because the people that are, you know, controlling the world financially think that there's too many people on the planet, and they have all these different things in the works, you know, to reduce the population. You know, they're separating the nuclear family. They're telling people not to get married, or, you know, you got crazy divorce rates. You got women that are having like 4 baby daddies, you know, they're having children out of wedlock, you know, because they can't lock down the dude. So they have the kid anyway. All these things are like detrimental to building wealth. And yeah, that's true, man. Here's another interesting comment, man. He said, in Canada, Canadians need to refi their mortgages every 5 years. That's insane. I mean, that's insane, you know, so, and it's practically impossible to save to buy a house cash. So yeah, it's like you're, you know, like under the gun for real in that situation. Yeah, thank you for that. Let's see, surprised. Let's see another one here. It says, surprise, your 2.1 mortgage is 90.7 $1 million check on $1 million. Yeah. So yeah, my mortgage is really low, man. It's in the twos and it's fixed for 30 years. And I feel very fortunate, you know, to be in the situation that I'm in, you know, and I really do feel bad for a lot of people out there because, you know, I mean, I have a daughter who's 20, man. And so, you know, I think about her every day, man. And it's like, what's the world going to be like for her? And then how can I help her? Right. You know what I mean? Because yeah, it's true, man. If you in your early ages and, you know, you're not getting married, you know, you're single income, and then think about 2% inflation, right? 3% inflation is a 50% increase, right? So that means that inflation has gone up by 50% if it goes to 3%, you know, and most people, they don't see it that way. Right. And so, you know, it's like, I think it's going to be like a serious struggle for people for sure, you know. So some other things, man, you know, to talk about too is like the thing that's going on with gold and silver right now is very fascinating. And I'll talk about that for a minute too. And so I'm still kind of researching this, and it says, oh, and before I get into that, let's see what he says here. So Josh says, my mortgage is in the twos for another 3 months, and it'll be, oh my gosh, man, I am sorry to hear that, bro. I am sorry to hear that. That's just nuts. Yeah, it's going to be crazy, man. And I think the only way that you'll see interest rates drop is if there's like a total economic collapse. But it's just kind of, I just don't see it, man. There's so much demand out there, man, from the energy sector, you know, it's just crazy demand out there, man. And so, yeah, I just don't see it, you know. There might be pockets of the economy that will crash, but, you know, because there's such demand for energy right now to power the future, that's just going to create so much business for so many people. And the government is spending like $1 trillion trying to push it forward, right? You know, and so, yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, talking about gold and silver and like this crazy conflict that's going on and how, you know, it's accelerating things. And so, you know, when when they decide when the government decided to weaponize the U.S. dollar, I really think that that was the last ditch effort, like in the final throes of trying to maintain hegemony. And there's these things that are happening in parts of the world that most people don't know about. And so, you know, the United States spends about $1 trillion a year funding its military, right? And then what they do is they borrow money from other countries to do that. So, you know, if you're a foreign country, you know, and you're thinking about, yeah, my money is, man, it's funding them to fucking have a gun to my head, you know, because they come in and visit you and be like, you got to do this and you got to do that. And if not, we're going to sanction your ass, you know, and then it's like, well, I can't do anything because they got F-35s, you know. And so, but now it's like, if you kind of look at what's happening, the weaponization of the dollar is making people realize that it's the end. It's like, it's not a safe asset anymore to hold your money, right? Especially if the person who has the power is abusing that power, right? And that's the one thing you never want to mess with, man, is the financial system. You know, you want to have an equilibrium and you want people to have confidence in the system. But yeah, I think it's over, man. I think we're past the point of no return. And over time, you're just going to see this slow breakdown, right? And what you need to look at, you need to look at what's happening with the foreign holdings of treasuries as they diminish, and then looking at gold and silver, what's recently happened with exchanging with new exchanges in the global south that take delivery. Their prices are actually higher than the prices that are on the Western houses like the COMEX, right? So you can almost do kind of like a yen carry trade where you can, you know, take delivery in the United States at a lower price and then go sell it in the global south as a higher price. And so what you're starting to see is a leakage of gold and silver, other commodities, leaving from the West and moving to the East, right? Because these markets, you know, people are actually taking delivery and they're not doing the paper shenanigans where, you know, they just give you some greenbacks, you know, for your contracts. And so, yeah, it's kind of crazy, man. I you know, these type of things, man, are going to be very positive for the prices. I think, you know, over time, you're going to see a slow repricing. Will there be some gyrations, you know, in the price? Yeah, you'll see some gyrations. But I think overall, because of what's happening and the way that the global south is really accelerating their development, that you're going to see less and less reliance on Western financial systems. And you're going to see a lot of things move eastward. And as they move eastward, you're going to see a repricing. That's how I see it, right? So what do you do, or what do I do? Well, me personally, you know, I do still buy precious metals and stuff. I think they're a great investment, but I'm also investing in cryptocurrency too. But this comment, we got another comment here from Will Shalad. Thank you for this, man. It says, what do you think about the dollar milkshake theory? That's a good question, man, because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not familiar with the dollar milkshake theory. I will definitely look that up and provide a very detailed response about it, because I do like to research things. So I thank you for that. I will take a look at that, and then, you know, I'll provide a response. If you tell me a little bit about it, I might be able to give you a little bit of information, but I really like to know in detail what I talk about. So yeah. But yeah, so, you know, you have that with gold and silver. Definitely that should be a portion of your portfolio that you're putting some money in. And, you know, it's kind of hard, man, because there's so many places, you know, there's so many places that you know, are good places to kind of put money right now and stuff based on what's going on. Like, to give you an example with the halving of Bitcoin, what really kind of, you know, and I feel bad, man, because Da Vinci, man, years back, man, when crypto was like next to nothing, he was telling people, he was preaching to the choir, man. He was like, you need to buy this stuff, man. And it was like, I don't know why I didn't listen, man. And I kick myself to this very day. But, you know, I'm doing it now, better late than never. But yeah, I look at what's happening, right? So when you got financial houses like BlackRock and these other companies that are creating ETFs, you know, for people to buy Bitcoin, and even though it's, you know, they're doing it to get fees off of it, it's demand, right? And then now Hong Kong is saying that they want to have exchanges that are buying it too. So I think over time you're going to see a fight for people's dollars to invest in the currency. But the thing is that it's a supply thing, right? And so if you look at the supply, it's very, very simple, man. If you have a high demand for stuff, it's the same thing that happened with watches. It's the same thing that happened with sneakers. If you have a very high demand for something that's in limited supply, the price will go up over time, right? That's just kind of like one of the simple rules of finance. So yeah, I think will there be high volatility? Yes, there'll be high volatility, but I think if you look 3 years from now, Bitcoin will probably be at a much higher price than what it is right now. At least that's how I see it personally. So we got more comments in here. Let's see. It says, okay, so that one I saw already. Okay, that was the milkshake theory. Okay, Brent Johnson came up with it. Okay, so I'll look at that. Okay, so we got another. I'm into crypto too. Remember Da Vinci? Yeah, Jeremy. Yeah. So yeah, that's why. I mean, that he was on to something with the conviction, man. And man, I have to really give him credit, man, because there's so much pressure in the world to really distract you from the truth, and so there's so much manipulation out there. It's everywhere, man. Like, if you look at media and stuff and, financial channels, it's crazy, man. But this guy he had a conviction, and he really, really believed, and he knew it, it was like he really knew deep in his soul about it, and he was right, and so, like I said, it only takes one time to get lucky, man. But yeah, my hat's off to him, man, because it takes balls of steel, to hold your line. You know what I mean? And so even when and I know this firsthand because I'm a big Tesla investor, and so I look at the gyrations and stuff, and I've earned my diamond hands. So it's like people will say stuff and everything, but I know everything there is to know about the company. I read the financial reports. I know exactly what they're doing and stuff, and so I keep tabs on Elon. And then I use the product, right? So I have firsthand knowledge of the product, and I've driven various products from them, and so I know. So yeah, man, that was crazy, man. Hats off to him, man. All right, let's see. So we got another one here. It says silver community all laughed at him, but I knew he was smart. Yeah, like I said, man, people try to kick you off your bucket, man. You know what I'm saying? It's like, he was out trying to sound the alarm, and he really tried to put that message out there. He wasn't selfish. He could have kept that information to himself and said, give you the finger. You know what I'm saying? And some people do that, man. They don't share information. But he didn't care. He was like, hey, man, he's like, I'm telling y'all, the train is leaving the station. You better get your ass on it. But no, most people didn't because they just didn't have faith, right? And so he really knew and understand about the product, man. And so, yeah. And to this day, he's still telling people the ride is not over. And I firmly believe that, you know what I mean? That looking at what the financial houses doing, and I said a term many years ago called trickeration, right? I'm about to give you an example of it. So if you look at what these financial houses were doing, Jamie Dimon and all them, they basically were shitting on Bitcoin. You know what I'm saying? And it's not in. Criminals use it. It's not worth. This ain't worth anything. But you know what they were doing behind the scenes? Getting in place because they recognized what was happening, and they were like, we need to get in place before we flip the switch so that people come to us, right? How are we going to make money off of this? We know it's going to make money, but how are we going to make money, right? So they went out and flim-flam society, you know what I'm saying? And they used the media to do it. And then once they got everything in order and they got Congress behind them, and then now you can see the story is starting to change, right? And I think it's going to continue to change, especially when you see an acceleration in foreign holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds, because the money has to go somewhere. And as interest rates go higher and higher, and then people see the price of Bitcoin accelerating, it's going to be FOMO, right? People like to chase prices when they go up, which is a horrible thing to do. But yeah, man, it's going to be a hype train. And I think once it gets in the media and it starts to move, more and more people are going to jump in, and the financial houses are going to promote it because they're already in position to collect their fee, right? So that's how that works. All right. Let's see, I was going to try to give the short version, but too long. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, man. So yeah. So I hope you guys kind of like this format. I know I've been on this live stream for over an hour, man, and I know sometimes it's too much for people. But yeah, I'm trying something different. I think this is much better than just making videos. I think the interaction with people is much better because you can kind of go back and forth and get things from people and hear opinions from people, you know, and because it should be a shared experience, right? It shouldn't just be one way, you know. Here's the comment here. Let's see. Love it, man. You have a gift. If you enjoy it, keep going. Yeah, I do, man. You know, for this, I really do enjoy it, man, because I do think that there's value in it. There's, you know, and we all learn from each other. So, you know, for me, it's a time thing because I do have a very busy life. My life is kind of like slowly transitioning. I used to have no time, man, no time. And I'll just kind of give you a little bit. I don't talk about my personal life too much, but I'll just give you this. You know, my daughter played golf, and so she played golf competitively. And so, you know, we would practice, you know, 3-4 times a week. We had 3-hour sessions. You know, then she had tournaments on the weekend. We had days with the coaches. Then there was physical training. You know what I mean? And so it was very, very time consuming. You just don't have the time, right? And so my child is important, and I wanted to give her a skill she could have for the rest of her life. You know, and so she played in many tournaments and won many awards and played with the best of them and stuff. And yeah, man, I mean, she was 14 years old driving the ball 260 yards, and you know, and so her short game coach was the same coach for Justin Rose. I had, you know, one of the best bunker players on the European tour was teaching her short game and how to play in the traps, you know, and then her swing coach down at Aviara and stuff. He worked with the Korean PGA. A lot of professional players would come to him. The guy was a genius, man. And so his name was the same name as mine. So it was like funny. We would sit there and like, you know, and joke with each other, but you know, he would teach me how to teach her. And so I learned a lot about the sport, so much so that I can actually coach if I wanted to. That's how much I've learned from the game, and I have all the tools. But yeah, man, it's just crazy, you know, tournaments Saturday and Sunday. They're all day, and then it's just all the practicing and all the training. When do you have time to be on YouTube, man? You know what I'm saying? So, and then, you know, I got a wife too. So I've been married over 20 years. So it's like, yeah, man, it's like, you know, when do you have the time? And so now, you know, that my daughter's older, now I have more time to do this. So, and I'm gonna try and do it more often, but I'm gonna try and do it in this format. And so I think, yeah, I will definitely get a subscription to StreamYard. I just got to figure out the audio thing because I do want to react to some of the videos that I show. Because sometimes I do the videos and I do this cut screen and I don't like it. I would much rather go through the experience, comment on it, get feedback from you, and then we continue on, right? I think that's kind of like you know, the best experience and stuff. So I'll try to do it that way. All right, man. So it's been an hour and 12 minutes. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for the comments. Love you guys, man. And I know I've been gone for a long time, and I'm slowly trying to make this transition back, and we'll see where it goes from there, man. So I will catch you guys later. Hope you guys have a good evening wherever you are, and I'll catch you on the next one. Late.